I'm Bob Koch. I'm the chair of the subcommittee for the Enabling Technologies for Capacities Beyond 100 Terabits per second Symposium. And that long title is basically has most of the idea of the symposium in it, but the notion is that the capacity of systems running on single mode fiber is starting to reach its limits. And in fact, we'll have an invited talk in the symposium that describes the way in which those capacities are limited, and we don't really think there's much more than say 5 years or 10 years of additional evolution for those systems before they'll reach a hard limit and won't be able to advance. So we're trying to, in this symposium, ask people to talk about their ideas for what technologies might enable us to get out of that box and to get back on a growth path for systems in fiber. So we have invited talks on, as I said earlier, from René Asiambra, who's going to talk about the capacity limits in single mode fibers and how those capacity limits might be changed as we move from single mode fibers to perhaps multiple mode fibers, multi-mode fibers with maybe just a few modes or more modes, or fibers that might have multiple cores which may interact or not interact. We'll have a talk from Peter Krumrich on amplifiers for those systems, because as you might imagine, when you start to talk about multi-mode fibers or fibers with multiple cores, how you can have an optical amplifier that can amplify all of those modes or all of those cores equally and in a simple way is critical. And that technology is particularly critical for making these things cost effective, because if we just imagine that we signal on multiple modes or multiple cores, and all we've really done is put a bunch of parallel systems very close together, but they still cost the same as they did cost before, it doesn't really help. We have to get some kind of significant cost savings. We also have some good contributed papers on that topic of new results of some amplifiers, both Raman amplifiers and erbium doped amplifiers that work for multiple modes at the same time. We have a couple of other invited speakers of interest that are talking more about, we've gone beyond just looking at proposing this idea of communicating over multiple modes or multiple cores to now trying to look at what really happens. There have been some good experiments out there, and now some people are starting to do some serious analysis of what the potential of this kind of technology might be. So there'll be invited paper from Massimiliano Salsi, who will look at some of the limitations and possibilities of this, as well as an invited paper from Magnus Carlson that will look at what are the possibilities for changing the ways in which we do modulation for even single mode systems that might give us more capacity, and what are some of the limitations there. So that no matter what, to get more capacity, we're going to have to pull out all of the stops, both for modulation formats and detection technologies, as well as using multiple modes and multiple cores and fibers to really try to get beyond the sort of 100 terabit level to, say, petabits of capacity in a fiber. In terms of trends of what we're seeing in the contributed papers, one of the things, as I mentioned earlier, that's a very critical issue is amplifiers for these kinds of systems. How do we, again, get cost-effective scaling for a system like this? It's going to require that we have the same kind of benefit from amplifiers that we had for WDM systems, which an amplifier for a 10 wavelength system and an amplifier for a 100 wavelength system are essentially the same. And we need to have the amplifiers for these spatially multiplex systems look just like the amplifiers for single mode systems. And we have a couple of good contributed papers that look at potential Raman amplifiers and erbium dope amplifiers and get some decent results in that area. We've also got a nice contributed paper that looks at a multiple span system with amplifiers in between, which is, again, any of these systems to be useful will have to be able to be extended across a continent and generate, again, the same kind of cost savings we've seen in the past. So I think we're starting to see some progress in those areas, and the symposium looks like it will have a chance to really generate some excitement in this area.